Are these crackers healthy? How about this chocolate bar? You know, I get so confused by these labels that I sometimes want to just give up and just eat whatever, right? Because it's so hard to decide what is healthy. Well, I know that's what you're thinking, and I definitely don't want you to give up, which is why I prepared this video for you. We're going to talk about how to interpret a packaged food label in 4 simple steps, and this is so that you can protect your health without wasting countless hours in the supermarket aisle. All right, so 4 steps, we're going to dive right into it. The first step, okay, is to look at the length of the ingredients, right? How many ingredients are in the list? And generally speaking, the more above 5 in the ingredient list, the worse it gets, okay? And so we see in a lot of these ultra processed foods ingredient lists of 20, 30 and more, okay? So the longer the list, the more processed it is, and more processing means less nutrients left behind to benefit your body. So these crackers, okay, it has the ingredient list is 12, right? So 12 ingredients in these crackers, and for this dark chocolate cashew butter bar, there are 6 ingredients, so that's closer to 5. Not terrible at all. Now the second thing, right, in our 4-step process is what comprises the ingredients. What are the ingredients? Are the ingredients, well, 3 things. Are the ingredients whole ingredients, right, or processed ingredients? And we're going to go into what that means shortly, right? Are the ingredients recognizable to you, things that you would probably have in your own kitchen, in your pantry, to make things from scratch? Or are these ingredients essentially chemicals that had to be manufactured, right, to add to this product, okay? So those are some of the things that you look at. And then the third thing that I would normally look at is in the ingredient, in the first 3 to 5 ingredients, is sugar listed as one or even more of the first 3 to 5 ingredients, okay? So let's read the list of ingredients in these crackers, okay? This is Crunch Master multi-seed crackers. So ingredients: brown rice flour, sesame seeds, potato starch, flax seeds, olive oil, amaranth, quinoa, salt, tamari soy sauce powder, which is made up of tamari soy sauce, which is made up of soybeans, salt, and then there's maltodextrin and some salt, okay? So looking at this list, we can see that some of the ingredients are processed. So we have brown rice flour instead of whole brown rice, and then we also have potato starch instead of like potatoes. So they processed the potato and pulled out the starch, okay? And so you had none of the little fiber or whatever else would come in the potato, okay? So some a little processing. The amaranth seems to be whole. There's the quinoa is whole, the flax seeds, so that's not bad at all, right? Maltodextrin now is something that is not going to be in your kitchen most likely, so that's sort of a red X against this, okay? But there's no sugar anyway in this ingredient list, and certainly not in the first 3 to 5, and there's no sugar at all, so that's not bad at all. Now let's look at the chocolate. So in this ingredient list, and this was so tiny I had to take a picture, and that's what you have to do sometimes, because depending on the package, it might be too small for you to read, okay? So ingredients: cacao, coconut sugar, cashew butter, cocoa butter, vanilla bean, sea salt, okay? So all things that whole ingredients for the most part, except the cashew butter, it's butter, so it's crushed, okay? But anyway, these are all ingredients that you could potentially have in your own kitchen to make something from scratch, maybe some cookies, some homemade cookies or something of the sort, okay? So not bad at all. I would say so far that this is less processed overall than these crackers, okay? Now, the third thing to look at, okay, and this is an overlooked one, but this one is essentially the 3 macronutrients and how much of these macronutrients in relation to each other. So the ratio of fat to carbohydrates to protein. Now, generally speaking, these are nutrients that we benefit from. I mean, maybe carbohydrates are not essential because our bodies can make glucose from scratch, right? But for the most part, I think carbohydrates were there for a reason. And the more unprocessed complex carbs obviously would be better than those that are processed, like the potato starch and the brown rice flour, okay? If you have them whole and unprocessed, then that's better. But essentially, these 3 macronutrients comprise the normal human diet. And if they are in a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio approximately, right, that's usually what I look for. And this is because I like to go back to milk as an example of one of the most complete foods that exist in nature, where you have in milk, whole milk, almost equal parts of fat carbohydrates and protein. Okay, so if using that as the example, when I'm evaluating foods, that is what I like to look at. So now for these crackers, you have 4 grams of fat, you have 22 grams of carbohydrates, and you have 3 grams of protein. So definitely not balanced, more heavily weighted in favor of carbohydrates. So this is mostly a carbohydrate rich food, okay? Now compared to the chocolate, all right, and with the chocolate we have 13 grams of fat, 14 grams of carbohydrates, and 3 grams of protein. So not quite as imbalanced as the crackers, but still not fully balanced, like something like whole milk, okay? So the fat and carbohydrates are almost in 1-to-1 ratio, and then you have protein, a little bit of protein, okay? It's not like a massive deal for something like this, because this is just a little dessert that you will have at the end of a meal, most likely, okay? Now, one thing to say, the importance of looking at the ratio of carbohydrates to protein to fat is that if I see, for example, like these crackers, it is more heavily, this is mainly a carbohydrate food, okay? So I wouldn't have this on its own, right? Because it's too much starch, and later on we'll see something else about the starch, but essentially this is something I would have with a protein. So I specifically bought these to have with sardines, right? Because I, after working for the whole day, I just need some replenishment of energy. So I can't just have sardines and salad. I need to have something else for me, for my body, because I know how much energy I need because of what I was doing for the whole day, okay? So having this, you might say, okay, well, yes, it's imbalanced. I can't have it. No, you can have it, but just don't have it alone, right? So for me, it's sardines. For you, it might be some other source of protein, right? And I'm also going to have it with some salad so that I can have some fiber with it as well. Now, the fourth point that I'm going to mention is carbohydrates, specifically 3 things about the carbohydrates, okay? And I alluded to one just now when I spoke about fiber, but let's go through them in order. So when I look now, after I look at the first 3 points, then the fourth and final is broken down into 3 subpoints. And so I study the carbohydrates and specifically the makeup of carbohydrates, okay? So on the total carbohydrates, right, usually it will have total sugars, right? So I look at that and to get an idea, okay, how rich in sugar is this? Is this something that has 12 grams of sugar? Is it 8 grams of sugar, right? In this case, it has less than 1 gram of sugar. So it's basically not a sugar food, and we didn't see sugar as one of the ingredients, okay? Compared to the chocolate, obviously the chocolate has sugar, and in this case, this chocolate has total sugars 8 grams. Every 4 grams of sugar is equal to 1 teaspoon, and our recommended daily allowance of sugar is 26 grams. So for an entire day, we should aim to have no more than 26 grams or no more than 6 teaspoons in an entire day. So in this chocolate, we already have 1/3 of the daily allowance in 1 serving. And that's another thing you have to bear in mind what a serving is. In this case, it is half of the bar, which is 4 little squares. When I have this, I have 2 squares. So that would be, you divide the 8 grams by 2, and I would generally be having 4 grams of sugar from this chocolate, which is 1 teaspoon, right? I have it as a dessert. I don't worry about it too much, okay? So you look on the carbohydrates at the amount of the total amount of sugar. In this case, less than 1. In this case, 8 grams. Now, after you look at the total amount of sugar, you want to know, hey, is that sugar naturally occurring sugar in the ingredients, right? Or is this added sugar, right? And in the case of the crackers, well, of course, we said already less than 1 gram. It had no added sugar. So the little negligible amount of sugar was whatever was present in the individual ingredients, the starch or whatever, right? The carbohydrates. Now for this, okay, total sugar 8 grams, but that includes 8 grams of added sugar. So all the sugar, the total sugar in this was all sugar that was added, right? And that is important because generally speaking, you don't want anyone to add sugar to your food. Generally speaking, you want to be the one in control of the added sugar. You want to be the one adding the sugar so that you know how much to add. For this chocolate, this happens to be a better type in my opinion. So it's not overloaded with sugar. It's a dark chocolate. Those dark chocolates tend to have less added sugar, okay? So that's the second thing you're going to look, right, on the carbohydrate macronutrient, right? And then the third thing to look at is the ratio of carbohydrates to fiber. So I always look at how much fiber is amongst the carbohydrates. In the case of these crackers, even though it's, multi-seed and it makes it look as if it's so healthy, this only has 2 grams of fiber to go with the 22 grams of carbohydrate. Now, the ideal, you might be wondering, what's ideal? How much fiber should you have with your carbohydrates? Ideally, for every 5 grams of carbohydrates, you want to have at least 1 gram of fiber, okay? So that's a 5-to-1 ratio. The higher above that, it starts to get a little worse, okay? So in this case, we have 22 grams of carbohydrates and only 2 grams of fiber. So we have an 11-to-1 carbohydrate to fiber ratio. So that is a bit too high, and some things get even worse than, much worse than that, okay? Now for the chocolate, okay, total carbohydrates was 14 grams, and in that you had 2 grams of fiber. So the carbohydrate to fiber ratio for the chocolate was 7-to-1. So that's significantly closer to our ideal 5-to-1 ratio of carbohydrates to fiber, okay? So those are the 3 things that you will look at in terms of the carbohydrate breakdown. Now, again, just like we said for carbohydrate, if it's carbohydrate heavy, should you say, oh, I'm not going to eat this? No, you just say, I'm going to have this with something else. I'm going to add it to protein. I'm going to add protein to it and some naturally occurring fat, okay? Same with this. It's carbohydrate heavy. There's hardly any fiber. Am I not going to have it? No, I can add some salads. So I'm going to have this with some sardines, which already comes in olive oil, and the sardines themselves are fatty fish. And then I'm also going to have it with vegetables. I'm going to have it with some zucchini, and I'm going to have it with some green salad as well. So that the important thing about looking at your label is not necessarily to say, oh, I can't eat this, right? Oh, what am I going to eat? I'm going to starve. No, it's to be aware of what it is that comes in the package so that you can know what to add to it so that you balance it out and not hurt your health, but nourish your body so that you can have the energy to do what it is you want to do, okay? So quickly, the 4 steps when you're interpreting packaged food labels. Number 1, the length of the ingredient list. 5 and less is better. Number 2, the makeup of the ingredients. Understandable and easy to buy to make things from scratch is better than chemical sounding, okay? Number 3, the ratio of the 3 macronutrients, fat to carbohydrates to protein, 1-to-1-to-1, or as close as possible for that is better. And then number 4, the carbohydrates of your carbohydrates. Is there added sugar? How much added sugar is there? Is there 8 grams, okay? And then lastly, and most importantly, of the total carbohydrates, how much of that is fiber? And ideally, is it 5 to less? Is it the ratio of carbohydrates to fiber 5-to-1 or less, right? That is the best, okay? I hope you all found this video helpful, this little tutorial. And if you found it helpful, definitely share it with somebody who you think might benefit, because this is a pressing problem for a lot of you who are on the verge of giving up. And I'm going to tell you today, there's no need to give up. Just go through these 5 steps, or rather 4 steps, and practice until it becomes second nature to you, and you will be able to evaluate these labels in seconds, literally. Thanks for watching and have a good day. See you in the next video. Bye.